Listen, you trigger-happy humans can't participate in these combat simulations. You're not allowed to fight. Got it? Orion snarled, jabbing an accusatory finger at Michael Perry. The Evora ambassador's bulbous eyes narrowed with suspicion. Michael fumed, his jaw clenching. After all the progress humanity made integrating with the Galactic Council, these uppity Evora still treated humans like uncaged animals, too dangerous to train alongside. Michael took a breath, steadying himself. Ambassador, I assure you, humanity has proven our commitment to the Council's principles. We're responsible members, same as any other race. Let us show what we can contribute. Orion scoffed, shaking his head. Your species' violent proclivities are well documented. The Evora have maintained peace for eons. We won't let your contributions jeopardize that. As Michael opened his mouth to argue, alarms blared across the compound. Soldiers scrambled to battle stations, a cacophony of shouts and pounding boots. Orion paled, his face slackening. We're under attack. An unknown fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. A panicked voice crackled over the comms. Michael's blood ran cold. An invasion here? Now? The Council was caught, utterly unprepared. As reports poured in of the Council's defenses crumbling, of Evora ships demolished without resistance, one truth crystallized in Michael's mind with perfect clarity. Without humans stepping up to fight, the Galactic Council was doomed. As the battle raged across the galaxy, the joint human-Evora forces fought desperately to hold back the relentless Xyrax onslaught. Evora ships burned, human fighters scrambled, and the once tranquil void of space erupted into a maelstrom of destruction. Michael Perry, his face set with purpose, gathered his team for a critical mission. They needed intel on their enemy, and fast. Listen up, he barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. We're going deep behind enemy lines. We need to find out what makes these bastards tick. His squad, a mix of battle-hardened humans and one reluctant Evora, nodded grimly. Orion, the Evora ambassador, shifted uneasily, his bulbous eyes betraying his discomfort. This goes against everything my people stand for, he protested weakly. Michael fixed him with a hard stare. Your people's way of life is about to end unless we act. You're with us, like it or not. They slipped past the front lines, infiltrating a distant planet where the Xyrax had set up a command post. The enemy's technology was like nothing they'd ever seen, sleek, advanced, and utterly alien. As they hacked into the Xyrax systems, a chilling truth emerged. They call themselves the Xyrax, Michael reported, his voice low, led by some warlord named Kravos. Looks like they want to subjugate the entire damn galaxy. Orion's face paled. By the ancestors. Suddenly, alarms blared. Xyrax soldiers poured into the command center, plasma rifles blazing. Michael's team scattered, diving for cover. Orion froze, eyes wide with terror. Get down, Michael roared, tackling the Evora to the ground as a plasma bolt sizzled overhead. The firefight was brutal. Michael's soldiers fought with iron will, covering each other, pushing forward inch by bloody inch. Orion watched in awe as these humans, these beings he'd once dismissed as violent savages, laid down their lives for each other without hesitation. Michael's quick thinking got them out, a daring plan executed with brutal efficiency. But as they fled, a plasma bolt caught him in the side, burning through his armor. He stumbled, gritting his teeth against the pain. Orion was at his side in an instant, slinging Michael's arm over his shoulders. I've got you, he said, his voice shaking. You're going to make it. As they limped back to friendly lines, Orion's mind raced. Everything he thought he knew, every certainty he'd clung to, crumbled to dust. The Evora's way, the path of pacifism. It seemed so naive now, so foolish in the face of annihilation. You were right, he murmured to Michael's semi-conscious form. We can't just sit back and hope for peace. We have to fight for it. Back at the Council's HQ, medics rushed Michael into surgery. Orion, still shaken, brought the intel before the assembled leaders. The Xyrax, he said, his voice trembling with a newfound conviction. They're unlike anything we've faced before. Their technology, their power. We need humanity's strength now more than ever. There was a long silence. Then, slowly, heads began to nod. A new understanding dawned, a grim realization of the sacrifices that lay ahead. In the human barracks, word of Michael's bravery spread like wildfire. Soldiers spoke his name with reverence, a talisman against the fear that gripped them all. They looked to the stars, to the battles to come, with a renewed sense of purpose. The Xyrax were coming. Kravos's armies, vast and terrible, loomed on the horizon. But for the first time, the galaxy stood united, human and Evora, side by side, ready to face the oncoming storm as one. The fight for the very soul of the galaxy had only just begun. Michael Perry winced as the medic tightened the bandage around his torso. The plasma burn still hurt like hell, but he'd be damned if he'd missed the emergency council meeting. He pushed himself off the medbay cot, ignoring the medic's protests. "I'm fine," he growled, pulling on his uniform jacket. "There's work to be done." The council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from a dozen alien races argued. Michael slipped in, taking a seat near the back. Orion stood at the podium, his bulbous eyes fierce with newfound conviction. "The Xyrax are unlike any threat we've faced," Orion declared. "We need humanity's strength, their tactics, their will to fight." A Zephyrian counselor slammed his tentacle on the table. "And risk becoming like them? Warmongers?" The debate raged on, voices rising. Michael's eyes scanned the room, years of combat training kicking in. Something felt off. Then he saw it. A hooded figure, hand reaching into their robe, a glint of metal. "Orion down!" Michael roared. He launched himself across the room, his body screaming in protest. The assassin's weapon appeared, a wicked, barbed throwing star. Michael tackled the figure just as they let it fly. The star whizzed over Orion's head, embedding in the wall behind him. Security swarmed in. The assassin thrashed, but Michael held firm. "Nice try, you Xyrax bastard," he snarled. Hours later, after intense questioning, the truth came out. The Xyrax were targeting the Evora homeworld. The council chamber erupted into chaos once more. "We have no choice," the Arcturian Prime Minister rumbled. "We must unite, humans included." A vote was called. The motion passed. Michael found himself thrust into a new role, military liaison. He stood before a sea of alien faces, many still wary. "I know you don't trust us," he said, "but right now trust doesn't matter. Survival does. So let's get to work." Days blurred together. Michael drilled Evora troops, teaching them to fight. He pored over star charts with Zephyrian admirals. He argued tactics with Arcturian generals. Orion was always by his side, translating, mediating. The unlikely pair became the backbone of this fledgling alliance. Then the Xyrax came. The battle above the Evora homeworld was chaos incarnate. Michael barked orders from the bridge of an Evora cruiser, guiding the defenders. Human ships darted between lumbering alien dreadnoughts, their unorthodox maneuvers catching the Xyrax off guard. "Now," Michael shouted, "hit their flank!" A wave of Zephyrian fighters swept in, their ion cannons blazing. Xyrax ships crumbled under the assault. But victory wasn't assured, not yet. Michael led a strike team onto the Xyrax flagship. They fought their way through twisting corridors, alien architecture making every turn a potential death trap. Finally, they reached the bridge. Kravos, the Xyrax warlord, towered over them. His mandibles clicked in derision. "You think you can stop us, human?" he hissed. Michael raised his pulse rifle. "I don't think, I know." The fight was brutal, but brief. Kravos fell, and with him, the Xyrax's will to fight. As the dust settled, Michael found Orion waiting for him in the war room. The Evora's eyes shone with newfound respect. "We did it," Orion said simply. Michael nodded, exhausted but proud. "We're just getting started." They turned to the holographic map, plotting their next move. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, there was hope. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as defenders, and they would not stand alone. Michael Perry stood before the Galactic Council, his eyes burning with intensity. The Xerax are on the ropes. Now's our chance to end this war once and for all. Orion nodded, his bulbous eyes scanning the room. We've developed a plan to liberate the occupied worlds and crush what's left of their leadership. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Michael outlined their strategy, detailing the planned assault on Xeron Prime. As he spoke, he could see the doubt in some of the alien faces, gradually replaced by hope. In the days that followed, Michael assembled his strike team. Humans stood shoulder to shoulder with towering Arcturians and lithe Zephyrians. Each member was a hardened veteran, their bodies bearing the scars of countless battles. "Listen up," Michael barked, pacing before the assembled warriors. "This won't be easy, but every one of you was chosen for a reason. Together, we'll put an end to the Xerax threat." The assault on Xeron Prime began with a thunderous roar as drop pods pierced the planet's atmosphere. Michael's pod slammed into the ground, the hatch blowing open. He rolled out, pulse rifle at the ready. "Move, move, move," he shouted, leading his team through a hail of Xerax fire. They fought their way across the blasted landscape, coordinating with precision born of endless drills and shared combat experience. A Zephyrian sniper picked off Xerax gunners, while an Arcturian heavy weapons specialist laid down suppressing fire. Michael's comlink crackled. "This is Orion. We've breached the Xerax command ship. Resistance is heavy." "Copy that," Michael replied, ducking as a plasma bolt sizzled overhead. "Stay focused. We've got our own problems down here." As they pushed deeper into Xeron Prime's defenses, they encountered a new threat. Xerax warriors in ornate armor charged their lines, screaming battle cries in their clicking language. "Kravos' elite guard," an Evora soldier gasped. "They're supposed to be unstoppable." Michael gritted his teeth. "Nothing's unstoppable. Fall back to the tunnels." They retreated into Xeron Prime's underground network, the fanatical Xerax hot on their heels. In the cramped, twisting passages, Michael's team set up ambush after ambush, wearing down the enemy's numbers. The final confrontation came in a vast underground cavern. Michael faced off against the Xerax leader, a hulking beast with cybernetic enhancements gleaming on its carapace. They circled each other, neither willing to make the first move. Then, with a roar, they clashed. It was a brutal, no-holds-barred brawl. Michael's combat training gave him an edge, but the Xerax's inhuman strength nearly overwhelmed him. In the end, it came down to sheer human tenacity. Bloody and battered, Michael stood over his fallen foe, the cavern echoing with the cheers of his team. As the dust settled on Xeron Prime, Michael received word of Orion's success. The Xerax command ship had fallen, its leader captured. In the war room, Michael and Orion pored over the intel they'd acquired. Star charts showed the locations of remaining Xerax strongholds. "We've got them on the run," Orion said, his voice filled with fierce pride. "Now we finish this." Michael nodded, already planning their next move. The war wasn't over, but for the first time since the Xerax invasion began, victory seemed within reach. Michael Perry stood in the dimly lit war room, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of Draxia. The Xerax capital world glowed an ominous red, its defenses a web of hostile markers. "This is it," he said, voice low, "our chance to end this war." Orion nodded, his bulbous eyes reflecting the hologram's light. "The intelligence from the captured commander is clear. Kravos and his inner circle have gathered on Draxia." Michael turned to face the assembled strike team. Jax, a grizzled human veteran, cleaned his pulse rifle with practiced efficiency. Beside him stood Trock, an Evora warrior whose muscular frame belied his species' pacifist reputation. "Listen up," Michael barked. "We're going in dark. Stealth is our ally. One mistake, and we're space dust." The team's stealth shuttle slipped past Draxia's orbital defenses, exploiting a gap in the sensor grid. As they touched down in a secluded valley, Michael felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. Move out, he whispered. They crept through Draxia's alien landscape, a world of twisted metal and bioorganic structures. Xyrax patrols buzzed overhead, oblivious to the infiltrators below. At a Xyrax communications relay, Jax worked his magic. His fingers danced over the alien console, planting false data to mask their presence. Bought us some time, Jax grunted, but not much. As they neared the sprawling capital city, a massive structure loomed before them. Trock's eyes widened. By the ancestors, he breathed. What is this place? They slipped inside, finding a nightmare. Alien bodies, Evora, Zephyrian, and others, lay strapped to operating tables. Xyrax scientists scuttled between workstations, manipulating stolen council tech with their spindly limbs. Trock's fists clenched. A growl rose in his throat. Michael grabbed his arm. Easy, he hissed. We can't blow our cover. They're butchering my people, Trock snarled. I know, Michael said, but if we fail here, it all continues. We have to push on. Jax appeared at Michael's side. Found something, he reported. Looks like blueprints for the command center. They studied the plans, formulating their approach. The compound's defenses were formidable, but Michael saw an opening. We go in as prisoners, he decided. They won't expect that. Minutes later, they stumbled towards the compound's gates, wrists bound with breakaway cuffs. A pair of Xyrax guards chittered in surprise. Caught, infiltrators, Jax groaned in broken Xyrax. For interrogation. The ruse worked. They were ushered inside, past layers of security. Once clear of the main gate, Michael gave the signal. All hell broke loose. Trock roared, hurling a Xyrax guard into a wall with bone-crushing force. Jax's cuffs clattered to the floor as he snatched up a fallen plasma rifle, laying down precise fire. Michael charged forward, leading the assault. Alarms blared as they fought their way deeper into the compound. Xyrax warriors poured in, mandibles clicking furiously. In the chaos, Michael spotted a gilded door, the inner sanctum. He kicked it open, coming face to face with Kravos' lieutenants. The Xyrax leaders screeched, reaching for weapons. But Michael's team was faster. A brutal, close-quarters fight erupted. Michael ducked under a swinging claw, driving his fist into an alien thorax. Nearby, Jax and Trock fought back-to-back, a whirlwind of violence. When it was over, Michael stood panting, surrounded by subdued Xyrax leaders. He tapped his comm unit. Orion, this is Michael. Compound secured. Send in the cavalry. As if on cue, the sky erupted with weapons fire. The council fleet had arrived. Michael's team held their position, fighting off waves of Xyrax counterattacks. Hours blurred together in a haze of combat. Finally, a familiar voice crackled over the comm. Michael, it's Orion. We've broken their lines. Draxia is ours. As the dust settled, Michael stepped outside. The Xyrax capital burned, its imposing skyline now a symbol of liberation. Orion appeared at his side, his Evora features etched with exhaustion and triumph. We did it, Orion said simply. Michael nodded, watching council ships land in the distance. We did, he agreed, but our work's not done yet. Michael Perry stood on the bridge of the council flagship, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of Malcor. The planet's surface glowed with the fires of industry, a testament to the Xyrax war machine. All teams in position, Orion reported, his bulbous eyes reflecting the tactical readouts. Michael nodded, feeling the weight of command. Commence Operation Sledgehammer. Jax's voice crackled over the comm. Strike Team Alpha moving in. Those shipyards won't know what hit them. On Malcor's surface, Trock readied his shock troops. Ground forces ready. We'll give them hell. The battle erupted in a fury of coordinated strikes. Human warships unleashed a barrage of fire, their energy weapons carving swaths through Malcor's orbital defenses. In the chaos, Jax's team slipped through, their stealth shuttles latching onto the massive shipyards. They cut their way in, pulse rifles blazing as they engaged Xyrax security forces in close-quarters combat. Planting charges on the main reactors, Jax reported, his breath heavy. But we're taking heavy fire. On the planet's surface, Trock led the charge. His troops surged forward, a mix of Evora, human, and other alien warriors united in purpose. They fought street by street, building by building, securing vital objectives. Factory Complex Alpha secured, Trock growled over the comm. Moving to Beta. Michael turned to Orion. It's time. Let's join the fight. They boarded a dropship, plunging through Malcor's atmosphere amid a hail of anti-aircraft fire. The ship rocked violently as it touched down in the heart of the industrial district. Michael hit the ground running, pulse rifle at the ready. He led his elite team through the labyrinthine corridors of Malcor's central command complex. Xerax defenders swarmed them, their alien weapons filling the air with deadly energy bolts. Push forward, Michael shouted, ducking behind a twisted metal barrier. He popped up, squeezing off precise bursts that dropped 2 Xerax warriors. They fought their way to the command center, where the fiercest resistance awaited. Michael charged in, engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat with the Xerax garrison commander. The alien's claws raked across Michael's chest, drawing blood, but Michael didn't falter. He drove his combat knife deep into the Xerax's thorax, ending the fight. Complex secured, Michael gasped, clutching his wound. Download the data. We need those stronghold locations. As his team worked, Michael felt his strength ebbing. The room spun, and he stumbled. Michael! Orion's voice seemed distant. We need immediate evac. Michael's down! The last thing Michael saw was Orion's concerned face as darkness closed in. Aboard the medical frigate, Orion paced nervously. The doctors worked frantically to save Michael's life. Their alien medical tech pushed to its limits. He's stable, the chief medical officer finally reported, but it'll be a long recovery. Orion nodded, a mix of relief and worry washing over him. He turned to face the assembled council forces, their faces a mix of human and alien features, all united in concern for their fallen leader. Michael Perry has given everything for this cause, Orion began, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. Now it's our turn. We will finish what we started. For Michael, for all our peoples, we will end the Xerax threat once and for all. A cheer went up from the assembled troops. Orion felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders as he turned to study the star charts, plotting their next move against the Xerax's dwindling empire. Orion stood before the holographic display of Draconis Prime, his bulbous eyes narrowed in concentration. The planet's surface glowed with a web of defenses, each point a potential death trap for his forces. We can't punch through those shields, Jack said, cleaning his pulse rifle as he spoke. Not without losing half our fleet. Orion nodded, tapping a claw against the display. We won't have to. Look here. The hologram zoomed in, revealing a network of ancient tunnels beneath the planet's surface. Trock leaned forward, his muscular frame casting a shadow over the display. Mining tunnels, the Evora warrior mused, abandoned for centuries. And our way in, Orion confirmed. Jax, you'll lead the strike team. Trock, you're with him. Hours later, Jax's stealth ship slipped past Draconis Prime's orbital defenses, its cloaking technology rendering it invisible to Xerax sensors. The ship touched down in a secluded valley, and Jax led his team to a hidden entrance. The tunnels were pitch black, the air thick with the stench of decay. Jax activated his night vision goggles, revealing a twisting maze of passages. Watch your step, he whispered, and keep an eye out for... A chittering screech cut him off. Something massive moved in the darkness ahead. Contact! Trock bellowed, bringing his heavy weapon to bear. The creature lunged, all teeth and claws. Jax's team opened fire, pulse rounds illuminating the tunnel in strobes of blue light. The beast fell, its carapace smoking. Keep moving, Jax ordered, stepping over the corpse. We've got a long way to go. Above the planet, Orion's fleet engaged the Xerax defenses. His flagship danced through a hail of energy bolts, returning fire with precision. Evasive pattern Delta, Orion commanded. Make them think we're retreating. His ships pulled back, drawing the Xerax forces away from the planet. As they did, Jax's team emerged from the tunnels, mere kilometers from the shield generators. "We're in position," Jax reported over the comm, "beginning our assault." The strike team hit the generator complex hard and fast. Trock charged forward, his massive frame absorbing fire as he closed the distance. Behind him, human operatives picked off Xerax defenders with surgical precision. Jax reached the main control room, fingers flying over alien consoles. "Charges set. We've got 2 minutes." As they retreated, the shield generators erupted in a chain of explosions. The planetary defense grid flickered and died. Orion's voice crackled over the comm. "Shields down. All ships. Commence bombardment." The sky lit up as Council warships unleashed their full fury on Draconis Prime's surface defenses. Jax's team secured a landing zone, fighting off waves of disorganized Xerax troops. But as Council dropships touched down, a new threat emerged. Xerax elite guards, their armor gleaming, charged the Council lines with suicidal fury. "We can't hold them!" Trock shouted, his weapon overheating from constant fire. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "This is Michael Perry. Reinforcements incoming. Hold the line." A battered transport ship roared overhead, disgorging fresh troops. At their head stood Michael Perry, his face pale but his eyes blazing with perseverance. "For the Council!" Michael bellowed, leading the charge against the Xerax elites. The tide of battle shifted. Human and alien alike fought with renewed vigor, pushing back the Xerax counterattack. Michael moved through the chaos, directing troops and plugging gaps in the line. As the dust settled, Michael found Orion coordinating the next phase of the assault. "Good to have you back," Orion said, clasping Michael's arm. Michael nodded, his gaze fixed on the Xerax stronghold looming in the distance. "We've come too far to fail now. Let's finish this." Together, they began planning the final push into the heart of the Xerax Empire. Michael Perry wiped sweat from his brow as he studied the holographic map of Draconis Prime's underground network. The ghostly blue light illuminated the grim faces of his strike team gathered around him. "This is it," Michael said, zooming in on a section of the map. "Intelligence puts the Xerax leadership here, deep beneath the surface." Jax leaned in, his cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed the data. "Those defenses look nasty. We'll need something special to breach them." Trock growled, his massive frame tensed with anticipation. "Nothing we can't handle." Michael nodded, feeling the weight of command. "Gear up. We move in 10. The team loaded into a modified drilling vehicle, its reinforced hull designed to withstand the crushing pressures of Draconis Prime's crust. As they descended, the darkness closed in around them, broken only by the glow of instrument panels. Hours passed in tense silence. Suddenly, the drill bit through into an open cavern. Alarms blared as Xerax defensive systems detected the intrusion. "We're in!" Jax shouted. "Deploying countermeasures!" The air filled with the staccato of pulse rifles as Xerax guards swarmed their position. Michael's team moved with practiced precision, laying down covering fire as they established a perimeter. Trock charged forward, his massive frame absorbing hits that would have felled a human. He barreled into a group of Xerax, scattering them like bowling pins. "Push through!" Michael ordered, leading the advance deeper into the complex. They fought their way through winding corridors, disabling traps and ambushes as they went. The air grew thick with the acrid smell of weapons, fire, and alien blood. As they pressed on, they came across a sealed chamber. Michael's blood ran cold as he saw what was inside. Evora civilians, suspended in stasis fields, their bodies twisted by cruel experiments. Trock's roar of rage echoed through the complex. He smashed his fist into a control panel, shattering it. "Trock!" Michael grabbed the Evora's massive arm. "We can't lose focus. We'll make them pay, but we need to complete the mission." Trock's eyes burned with fury, but he nodded, forcing himself to calm down. They pushed on, finally reaching a heavily fortified door. Jax stepped forward, attaching a device to the locking mechanism. "This'll take a minute," he said. "I'll need cover." Michael nodded to Jax. "Do it. The rest of you with me. We're going to draw their fire." Michael led a daring assault on the Zyrax defensive positions, keeping the alien forces occupied while Jax worked. The air filled with energy bolts and the chittering screech of Zyrax war cries. Finally, the door slid open with a hiss. Michael's team poured in, engaging the Zyrax leadership in close-quarters combat. The room erupted into chaos as Human and Evora fought side by side against the desperate Zyrax. In the midst of the battle, Michael spotted a figure fleeing through a hidden passage, the Overlord. "Jax!" he shouted, "after him!" But before they could give chase, alarms blared. The complex shook as explosions rocked the structure. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," an alien voice announced. 5 minutes to detonation. Michael cursed. "Everyone out, move!" They fought their way back through collapsing tunnels, the air thick with dust and debris. Zyrax forces harried them at every turn, fighting with suicidal desperation. As they neared the exit, a massive blast sealed the tunnel ahead. Trox stepped forward, his eyes meeting Michael's. "Go," the Evora warrior said. "I'll hold them off." Michael opened his mouth to protest, but Trox cut him off. "There's no time. Save our people, Michael. Make it count." With a heavy heart, Michael nodded. He led the survivors in a mad dash for the surface as Trox's battle cry echoed behind them. They emerged into the harsh light of Draconis Prime's sun, just as the ground beneath them heaved. The complex collapsed in on itself, sending a plume of dust into the sky. As Orion's ships swooped in for extraction, Michael looked back at the ruins. They had struck a blow against the Zyrax, but at a terrible cost, and somewhere out there, the Overlord still lived. Aboard Orion's flagship, Michael and the Evora leader convened an emergency war council. The holo display showed the remnants of the Zyrax forces, scattered but not broken. "We've hurt them," Orion said, his bulbous eyes narrowed in concentration. "But as long as the Overlord lives, this isn't over." Michael nodded, his face etched with exhaustion and persistence. "Then we finish it, whatever it takes." Michael Perry hunched over the holographic display, his eyes scanning the intricate web of Zyrax communications they'd intercepted. Beside him, Orion's bulbous eyes narrowed in concentration. "It's working," Michael said, his voice low. "They're buying our false retreat." Orion nodded, his antennae twitching with anticipation. "The Overlord won't be able to resist such an opportunity. He'll strike soon." They didn't have to wait long. Alarms blared throughout the Council's staging area on Draconis Prime. Michael rushed to the command center, where a sea of screens showed the incoming Zyrax fleet. "All ships, battle stations," Michael barked into the comm. "Execute Operation Ambush." The sky lit up with weapons fire as the Zyrax forces entered the trap. Human warships decloaked behind the invaders, while Evora battle cruisers rose from hidden bunkers on the planet's surface. The Zyrax found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire. Michael led his strike team to their stealth shuttle. Jax checked his pulse rifle, his cybernetic eye whirring as it calibrated. "Let's end this," Jax said, his voice grim. They slipped past the chaotic space battle, docking with the Zyrax command ship. The moment they breached the airlock, they were met with a hail of energy bolts. Michael dove for cover, the acrid smell of ozone filling his nostrils. "Push forward," he shouted, returning fire. They fought their way through twisting corridors, the ship's alien architecture making every turn a potential ambush. Suddenly, a massive blast door slammed shut, cutting off their advance. "Jax, can you bypass it?" Michael asked. Before Jax could answer, the door exploded inward. A squad of Zyrax elites poured through the opening, their chitinous armor gleaming in the emergency lighting. The firefight was brutal in close quarters. Michael watched in horror as Jax took a direct hit, crumpling to the deck. "Man down!" Michael yelled, dragging Jax to safety. With Jax out of the fight, Michael and the Evora warriors pressed on, their rage fueling their advance. They finally reached the bridge, where the Overlord stood waiting. The alien leader's multifaceted eyes gleamed with malice. "You've lost, human!" it hissed. "This ship will be your tomb." A klaxon sounded and Michael's blood ran cold as he recognized the self-destruct sequence. "Everyone out," Michael ordered, helping wounded comrades to their feet. As they raced back through the ship, Michael's mind raced. He tapped into the ship's systems with his portable computer, his eyes widening as he saw the projected blast radius. "Orion," he whispered, seeing his friend's ship in danger. Michael made a split-second decision. He shoved the last of his team into an escape pod, then sprinted for a single-occupant pod nearby. "What are you doing?" an Evora warrior called out. "Saving a friend," Michael replied, sealing himself inside. He launched, using the pod's maneuvering thrusters to aim directly at Orion's ship. As the Xyrax command ship exploded behind him, Michael closed his eyes, hoping his trajectory was true. The shockwave hit, sending his pod tumbling end over end. Michael's head slammed against the hull, and darkness took him. In the aftermath, Orion stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the debris field where the Xyrax command ship had been. His crew worked frantically, searching for any sign of Michael or his pod. "Sir," a young Evora officer approached, his voice somber. "There's no trace of Commander Perry." Orion's shoulders sagged, but he straightened, facing his crew. "Then we finish this, for Michael." In the days that followed, Orion led the Council forces with a fierce drive. One by one, the remaining Xyrax strongholds fell. As the last pocket of resistance crumbled, Orion allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. On a hillside overlooking the ruins of the final battle, Orion presided over a memorial service. Beings from a dozen species gathered, united in their grief and gratitude. "Michael Perry gave everything for our cause," Orion began, his voice carrying across the assembly. "He showed us that our differences are our strength. In his memory, we will build a future of unity and peace." As the gathered beings bowed their heads in respect, a technician approached Orion, whispering urgently in his ear. "Sir, we've detected an anomaly in uncharted space. It might be an escape pod." Orion's heart raced, but he kept his voice steady. "Prepare a search team. If there's even a chance." He looked up at the sky, hope rekindling in his alien eyes. Orion's bulbous eyes reflected the flickering flames of the memorial pyre. The gathered crowd stood in hushed reverence, their faces illuminated by the soft glow. Orion's gaze fixed on the plaque bearing Michael Perry's name, his antennae drooping with the weight of memory. As the last embers faded, Orion felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Jax, the human's once youthful face now etched with lines of hardship and age. "Orion," Jax said, his voice low and urgent, "I need to speak with you, privately." They moved away from the dispersing crowd. Jax's cybernetic eye whirred as he glanced around, ensuring their privacy. "We've picked up a signal," Jax said, his organic eye gleaming with a mix of hope and fear. "An escape pod. The transponder. It matches Michael's." Orion's antennae twitched in disbelief. "Impossible. We searched for years." Jax thrust a datapad into Orion's hands. "Look at the signature. It's him, Orion. It has to be." Orion studied the data, his heart's racing. The evidence was there, but the implications. "I can't," Orion said, handing the pad back. "We've moved on. The galaxy has healed." Jax grabbed Orion's arm, his grip tight. "We owe him this. If there's even a chance." Orion looked back at the memorial, Michael's name etched in stone. He nodded slowly. "Prepare a ship," he said. "Small crew. We leave at dawn." The journey took them deep into uncharted space. Their ship, sleek and stealthy, navigated treacherous asteroid fields and swirling nebulae. Orion stood at the helm, his eyes never leaving the sensors. A proximity alarm blared. A massive, amorphous creature materialized from the void, its translucent body pulsing with bioluminescence. Tentacles lashed out, seeking to ensnare their ship. "Evasive maneuvers," Orion shouted. The pilot's hands flew across the controls. They dove and weaved, narrowly avoiding the creature's grasp. Energy weapons flared, driving the beast back into the depths of space. Days turned to weeks. The crew grew restless, hope fading with each empty sector. Then, amidst a field of space debris, they saw it. A battered escape pod, its hull scarred by micro-impacts and cosmic radiation. "Bring it aboard," Orion ordered, his voice tight with anticipation. The pod's hatch groaned as they forced it open. The stench of stale air and decay washed over them. And there, curled in a fetal position, was Michael Perry. His skin was pale and waxy, hair long and matted, but his chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Orion cradled Michael's emaciated form, feeling the fragility of human life. Michael's eyes fluttered open, recognition sparking in their depths. "Oh, Orion," Michael rasped, his voice barely a whisper. "Save your strength," Orion said. "You're safe now." Michael's hand clutched at Orion's arm with surprising strength. His eyes widened with urgency. "The Zyrax," he wheezed. "They're not gone." Michael's body went limp, his final breath escaping in a soft sigh. Orion stared at his friend's lifeless form, Michael's words echoing in his mind. The journey back to council space was somber. Orion spent hours in his quarters, poring over old intelligence reports, searching for any hint of Zyrax activity. Upon their return, Michael's body was given a hero's funeral. But even as the masses mourned, Orion's mind raced. He stood before the Galactic Council, his posture rigid with purpose. "We must investigate," he declared. "If there's any truth to Michael's warning, we cannot ignore it." Murmurs of dissent rippled through the chamber. A human counselor stood, her face etched with concern. "The war nearly destroyed us all," she said. "Are you willing to risk everything we've built on the words of a dying man?" Orion's gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of each council member in turn. "We owe it to Michael," he said, "to all those who sacrificed everything. We must know the truth." Orion turned, striding from the chamber. He paused at a viewport, staring out at the star-filled expanse. Whatever threat lurked in the shadows, he would face it. For Michael, for the future of the galaxy.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.